Vamp, Chapter 6. Saturday morning, I did a few chores around the house and yard. I had to work the dinner shift tonight, so I figured I could get a few things done beforehand. I went in a little bit early so that I could talk to Hank about being out that next week. Hank wasn't upset that I was going to go work on Aiden's crew. He was more or less worried about me, but he was happy to hear that I'd be glad to come back and work for him while I wasn't out fishing. I started my shift at 3 o'clock, and I had been at work a few hours when a familiar-looking man walked in and sat down at the bar. The first thing that triggered my memory was his smell. I knew I'd smelled it before. Every living being has a different smell. Like we all have different fingerprints. For example, deer all smell similar, but each individual one has a different, distinct smell to it. So not one thing in the world smells exactly like another. "What can I do for you, sir?" I walked over to him. He didn't look up at me. He just stared down at the bar and said, "Can I have a glass of water, please?" "Sure," I said as I filled up his glass. I looked back at the mystery man. He was a younger man, probably in his 20s. He was wearing a plain black baseball cap, a gray windbreaker, with a blue shirt and jeans. He looked very familiar. I couldn't remember where I had seen him before, but I was certain his smell wasn't human. "Are you okay?" "I have a confession to make. I've been following you ever since you left Louisiana. Something is wrong with me. And I saw you one night in New Orleans, in an alley, with a man," he said, looking up at me like he was trying to tell me everything else through telepathy. I knew what he meant, though. I could place him now. I had seen him walking around one night when I was looking for someone to feed from. He didn't smell good, so I passed him up and took the next person into the alley. At one point, I felt like I was being watched, but when I looked, I didn't see anyone. I guess I was wrong. "What are you?" he asked. I looked around. The bar was pretty empty. A few tables in the very back had some customers at them, but they were all busy in their conversations. I leaned down to his level and looked him right in the eyes and said, "I'm a vampire." His eyes got wide and he moved back a little. "Don't be scared. I'm not going to hurt you. What's your name?" "People call me Buddy," he said. "Sounds like a dog name," I said under my breath. "Well, why did you follow me? Why did you think that I'd be able to help you?" "I am 25 years old. I don't remember anything about my life. I was found naked in an alley one night. An old man came up to me and asked, 'You okay, buddy?' That's where I got the name. I can't remember my real name, or where I came from, or even if I had a family," he said, putting his head in his hands. "It's been over 2 years, and I can't remember one thing. Something is wrong with me, and I just want to know what it is." He looked so distraught, like he was on the verge of crying. I could see the pain and question in his eyes, and I felt like I had to help him as much as I could. "Well, I can tell you one thing. You're certainly not a vampire. You don't smell like one of us. And you would have been draining people left and right since you were first created. And you would have figured it out for yourself. But you do have very distinct eyes and the odor of a wet dog." I scrunched up my nose. "What does that all mean?" he asked. "I'm positive you're a werewolf. You sure as hell smell like one. Your eyes are the telltale sign, though. Werewolves have a very different eye from everything else. From the outside of your iris in, you have a ring of brown, yellow in the middle, and then green next to the pupil." "I always thought I had unique eyes," said Buddy as he took his hat off and ran his hand through his hair. He replaced his hat and asked, "Don't vampires and werewolves hate each other?" "No, I mean I don't like some of them just because of how they act, but all in all we get along fine. That rivalry is just a figment of people's imaginations. Now, I think I know someone who can help you, but he's a little different," I said slowly as I searched for the right words. "Different how?" asked Buddy. "Different as in he's kind of an asshole, but he's a great teacher. He is over 300 years old. The one thing I don't understand, though, is that you say you don't remember changing. That's something werewolves don't forget. You still have control even in that state. As far as I know, I've changed quite a few times, but I never remember anything that happens. I just wake up somewhere naked, a few times covered in blood. I just remember feeling like my bones are breaking, and then it's like I black out, he said, shaking his head. Here's what I can do. I can take you to Asher, the werewolf that I know. He lives in Minnesota, but I can't bring you there until I get back from fishing in about 3 weeks. Do you have a place to stay until then? I asked. Yeah, I'm renting a room at a small motel on First Ave, room 201. Should I be worried? Is anything after me? Why 3 weeks? He asked as his shoulders slumped forward. He looked like any hope he had just left him. No, you've got nothing to worry about. I'm going to be out to sea for a few weeks. I can come find you after our fishing trip, and I'll take you to Asher. I see. Well, I guess I'll be heading out. Here's my number. Give me a call when you guys get back and let me know when you want to meet up. He handed me a piece of paper with his phone number on it. Hey, I have a few books at home that might help you out. Do you mind if I bring them by later tonight? Yeah, that would be great. I could use all the information I could get right now. All right, buddy. I'll let you know when I'm on my way over, I said. He smiled and got off the bar stool and quietly exited. I looked around. There were only 2 tables left in the bar, and it was almost the end of my shift. As I started to do my side work, I found myself thinking about Buddy. He was in a strange situation. Maybe I should call Asher and let him know we were coming? And then I shook my head and decided against it. I had known Asher from back when I lived in Minnesota. He and I got along fine, but it was mainly because I didn't mind sarcasm. He was about 6'3" and very lean, brown hair, but when he shifted, he grew another foot, and muscles on top of muscles would appear out of nowhere. His biceps alone were bigger than my head when he was in what he called his natural form. I finished my work and sped home. I knew I had books that I could bring to Buddy about werewolves that would probably help him out. They would at least give him some information. When I pulled up to the motel, I called Buddy's number to let him know I was here. He met me at the door of his hotel room. Hey, Gretchen, he waved as I came up the steps. Hey, Buddy, how are you doing? I asked as I walked into his hotel room. I'm doing okay. Really confused, but I'm more anxious to just start learning about what's going on with me, he said. Well, hopefully these can help. I took the books out of my bag and sat them on the couch that was in his room. I had brought 3 books, Werewolves for Dummies, Everything You Wanted to Know About Werewolves, and a very old book I had collected many years ago from an antique store called Ancient Shifters. These 3 books are the best ones for you right now. I only collect books that are closest to our actual qualities. I don't like to have informative books that don't have our true qualities in them. These 3 were written by actual werewolves. The human world doesn't know that, though. But he walked over and picked up the books and thumbed through them. So before I start reading, can you tell me what you do know about werewolves? He asked as he sat down next to me. Well, being a werewolf is in your genes. The only way to create one is to procreate and have children who carry the same gene you do. And it's only males that carry this gene. Females can't be werewolves. You usually start changing around puberty. High emotions can set the gene into gear also. You're not allergic to silver. You can change whenever you want, but a full moon will force you to shift. You guys don't age, so as long as you don't get yourself killed, you'll live forever. You also run a body temperature ranging between 99.9 and 101 degrees. I sat back and rubbed the bridge of my nose with my fingers. I was getting a headache, probably from the smell. I wasn't an expert at werewolves, and I couldn't think of much more to tell him, and I felt bad about it. Then, just as I was thinking that, I remembered something. Oh, you can read minds, I said as I pointed to my head. That explains a lot. He relaxed and leaned against the back of the couch. I seriously thought I was going to have to commit myself sooner or later. How do I control that? How do I control what I hear, what I don't hear? How do you manage it with your hearing? Buddy asked. I mean, you must hear every whisper. It takes a lot of practice. At first, it was very overwhelming and loud. I felt like everyone around me was shouting. And it was even worse when I was out in public because it would just be a big cloud of noise around me. I couldn't even make out a conversation or words at some points. But over time, you're able to control it. Practice dialing in on a specific voice and letting it drown out the rest. If you practice on focusing on one thing, it'll come in clear and the rest of the noise will fade into the background. We sat in silence for a few moments before I said, I'm afraid that's all I can really help you with. The books will explain more. They'll explain how to control your emotions, how to shift, everything. Then in a few weeks, when I get back from the fishing trip, we'll take a trip to Minnesota and meet up with Asher, who can train you firsthand. I hope that's enough for now. It's more than enough. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done so far, he said. He started flipping through the books again and seemed to have found something that interested him. I'll leave you to read, and I'll see you in a few weeks, I said as I stood up and walked over to the door. On the drive home, I thought about Buddy and everything he must be going through. To not know what you are be a terrible feeling. To know that you're not normal like everyone else, to know that there is something completely different about you, and to have zero help in trying to figure that out. I found myself being thankful that I did have someone there to train me and teach me everything I needed to know, even if I hated him. Vladimir taught me how to live. When I got home, I crawled into bed and turned on the TV and messaged Aiden. Should I really be getting involved with Aiden? I wondered. Then after a few hours of deliberation, I decided that after 70 plus years of following my rules, it was time I broke one and had a little fun.